I'll write part 1 of the story in about 800 words using simple English in third-person style, with simple Korean names as requested. Part 1. The Unexpected Inheritance. The rain tapped against the windows of Jia Kim's small apartment as she graded papers at her kitchen table. As an astronomy professor at the local university, nights like these were common. Just her, a cup of tea, and stacks of student work to review. Her daughter Sue was already asleep in the next room, the digital clock on the microwave showing. It was nearly midnight. A sudden knock at the door made Jia jump. Visitors at this hour were unusual, especially on a Tuesday. She peered through the peephole to see a tall figure in a dark suit, standing perfectly still. "Who is it?" she called, keeping her voice low to avoid waking Sue. "My name is Hoon. I represent the interests of your neighbor, Mr. Doe." Jia frowned. Mr. Doe lived in the apartment next door, a quiet man who kept to himself, though over the past 3 years they had developed an odd friendship. They would sometimes share meals on the building's rooftop, where Mr. Doe showed surprising knowledge of the stars, even correcting Jia on occasion, which both impressed and amused her. She opened, the door cautiously, chain lock still in place. "I'm sorry to disturb you so late," Hoon said. His voice was deep and formal, "but the matter is urgent. May I come in?" Something about his appearance seemed slightly off, his skin too smooth, his movements too precise. But Jia had always been taught to be polite. She closed the door, removed the chain, and let him in. "What's this about Mr. Doe? Is he okay?" Hoon placed his briefcase on the table. "I regret to inform you that Mr. Doe passed away yesterday morning." Jia felt a wave of sadness. Despite his oddities, she had grown fond of her neighbor. "I'm so sorry to hear that. What happened?" "His body simply reached the end of its useful cycle," Hoon said matter-of-factly. Then, seeming to catch himself, added, heart failure. Very sudden." As Hoon opened his briefcase, Jia noticed his hands. They had 6 fingers each. She backed away slightly. "You're not human," she whispered. Hoon looked up, his eyes now glowing faintly in the dim light. "No. And neither was Mr. Doe. His real name was Dory, from the planet Talon. He was a merchant and explorer who chose to live among humans." Jia sank into a chair, her mind racing. "This is a joke, right?" "I assure you it is not," Hoon said, pulling out a small device that projected a 3-dimensional image into the air, a star map unlike any Jia had ever seen. Dory was one of the wealthiest traders in 3 star systems. He came to Earth to hide from those who wanted his fortune. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Dory named you as his sole heir. You are to receive everything, his wealth, his ships, his trading rights, and—" Hoon paused, pressing another button on the device. A new image appeared. A small blue-skinned child with large almond-shaped eyes. "This is Nari, Dory's child, currently in stasis aboard his ship. You have also been named as Nari's guardian." Jia stared at the image. "This can't be real. Dory observed you for years before becoming your neighbor. He saw how you raised your daughter with kindness and wisdom, despite having limited resources. He believed you would do the same for his child." Jia thought of Sue, now 13, and how hard she'd worked to give her a good life after her husband left. "But I don't know the first thing about raising an alien child. You will have help. Dory's ship has an advanced AI system and a comprehensive database about Nari's species and needs." "Ship? Where is this ship?" Hoon smiled slightly. "Currently orbiting Earth, cloaked from human detection systems." A sound from the hallway made them both turn. Sue stood there in her pajamas, eyes wide. "Mom? What's going on? Who's that?" Before Jia could answer, Hoon's device beeped urgently. His expression changed to one of concern. "We've been tracked. Dory's enemies have found us sooner than expected." He turned to Jia. "You must decide now. If you accept the inheritance, I can transport you and your daughter to the ship immediately. If not, I will find another guardian for Nari, but you will likely never be safe. Once they know you were chosen, they will assume you have information about Dory's assets." Jia looked at Sue, then at the image of the alien child floating above the table. Her life had been ordinary, teaching, raising her daughter, paying bills, Now she was being offered something extraordinary but also dangerous. "Mom," Sue whispered, looking scared but also curious. Outside, a strange humming sound grew louder. The lights in the apartment flickered. "They're here," Hoon said urgently. "You must decide." Gia took a deep breath, then reached for her daughter's hand. "We'll go," she said. "We'll help Nari." Hoon nodded, pressing a button on his wrist. "Prepare for transport." As the room began to shimmer around them, Gia's last thought was of the stack of ungraded papers on her table. Her students would certainly be surprised when their astronomy professor disappeared without a trace. To the stars, she had spent her life studying from afar. A bright flash of light filled Gia's vision, and then suddenly the familiar surroundings of her apartment were gone. When her eyes adjusted, she found herself standing in a large circular room with smooth metallic walls that seemed to glow with a soft blue light. Sue clung tightly to her arm, eyes wide with wonder and fear. "Welcome aboard the Stellar Voyager," Hoon said, his voice echoing slightly in the chamber. This was Dory's personal ship. Gia took a deep breath, trying to stay calm for Sue's sake. The air smelled different here, cleaner somehow, with a faint scent like cinnamon. "Are we in space?" Sue whispered, pressing her face against a small window. Outside, the curved edge of Earth was visible, a blue-white crescent against the blackness. "We are in low Earth orbit," Hoon explained. "The ship's cloaking systems make it invisible to Earth's detection technology." A door slid open at the far end of the room, and a small hovering robot floated toward them. It looked like a silver sphere with several small appendages. "Greetings, Professor Kim," the robot said in a pleasant voice. "I am Min, the ship's assistant. I have been instructed to help you adjust to your new circumstances." Gia nodded, still struggling to process everything. Can we see the child? Nari?" "Of course," Min replied. "Please follow me." They walked through curving hallways with the same blue glow. Sue had stopped looking afraid and was now examining everything with growing excitement. "Mom, this is just like in my science fiction books," she whispered. Min led them to a smaller room where a transparent pod sat in the center. Inside, floating in a clear liquid, was a small blue-skinned child. The baby looked almost human, except for the blue skin, 6-fingered hands, and large, almond-shaped eyes that were currently closed. "This is Nari," Hoon said softly. "Dory's child is approximately 2 Earth years old, but has been in stasis for the past year." "Why?" Gia asked, approaching the pod carefully. Dory knew his enemies were closing in. "He placed Nari in stasis for protection while he made arrangements for your inheritance." Min floated to a control panel and pressed several buttons. The liquid in the pod began to drain away. "Are you waking the baby?" Gia asked, suddenly alarmed. "I don't know how to care for an alien child." "The ship's systems will help you," Min assured her. "And Nari's species is remarkably similar to humans in many ways. They eat similar foods, though they need certain mineral supplements. They learn quickly and are highly adaptable." The pod opened with a soft hiss. The small blue child's eyes flickered open, revealing irises that shifted color like opals. Gia hesitated, then reached out to touch Nari's hand. The child blinked up at her, then gripped her finger with surprising strength. A warm feeling spread through Gia's chest. Whatever this child was, it needed protection, just like any child. "There is something else you should know," Hoon said, his tone growing serious. "Dory was not just wealthy. He controlled technology and trade routes that made him powerful. Those who wanted his fortune killed him. They will not stop until they have what they want." As if summoned by his words, a harsh alarm suddenly blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed along the walls. "Warning," announced an automated voice. "Unknown vessel approaching. Weapons systems detected." Min spun in the air, appendages extending to work multiple controls at once. "They've found us. They must have tracked our transport signal." Hoon moved quickly to a large console, fingers flying over strange symbols. "They're preparing to board. We have minutes at most." "Who are they?" Gia demanded, instinctively pulling both Sue and now Nari closer to her. "Bounty hunters hired by Dory's rivals," Hoon explained grimly. "They will take Nari and kill anyone who stands in their way." "What can we do?" Gia asked, trying to keep her voice steady for the children. Min projected a map showing several flashing points. There are escape pods, but they would be easily tracked. The jump drive, Hoon suggested. It's our only chance. Jump drive, Gia repeated. It will take us to another star system instantly, Min explained. But it requires precise calculations, and we haven't programmed a destination. A loud thud shook the entire ship. On a nearby screen, Gia could see another vessel, angular and threatening, attaching itself to their hull. They're cutting through, Min announced. Gia looked at Sue's frightened face, then down at Nari, who was watching her with those shifting opal eyes. In that moment, something changed in Gia. She was no longer just a college professor. She was the guardian of these children. We need to jump, she said firmly. Can the ship calculate a safe destination? It would take too long, Hoon replied. Gia thought quickly. What about the coordinates in Dory's database? Somewhere he considered safe. Min bobbed in the air excitedly. Yes, there's a sanctuary world in his personal files. Set course there, Gia ordered, surprised by the authority in her own voice. As the ship shuddered with another impact, Hoon quickly entered commands. The engines hummed to life with increasing intensity. Jump in 10 seconds, he announced. The sound of metal tearing came from somewhere in the ship. Sue pressed against Gia in terror. 3, 2, 1. The stars outside the window stretched into lines of light, and then everything twisted in a way that made Gia's stomach lurch. For a brief, disorienting moment, reality itself seemed to bend. Then suddenly Earth was gone. Through the window, they could see an unfamiliar sun and a distant orange planet. They had escaped. For now, the journey through space lasted 3 days. Gia spent this time learning about Dory's empire from Min and Hoon while caring for Nari, who grew attached to her quickly. The ship's computer taught her about the Galactic Alliance, a union of 7 major species that governed most known space. Sue absorbed everything eagerly, especially information about Nari's species, the Lorians, known for their empathic abilities and long lives. When they finally reached their destination, a massive ring-shaped space station called Hub Central, Gia gasped at its size. Hundreds of ships of different shapes and sizes moved around it like fish in a pond. This is the center of galactic law, Hoon explained as their ship docked. Dory's rivals have already filed claims against his will. The Galactic Court will decide if you can keep your inheritance. The docking bay bustled with beings of all shapes and colors. Some had multiple limbs, others floated rather than walked. Gia held Nari close while Sue stayed by her side, eyes wide with wonder. Remember, Min whispered as they walked, show no fear. Many beings here think humans are primitive. They were escorted to a small apartment where they would stay during the trial. That evening, a tall being with pale green skin and 4 arms visited them. I am Quan, your legal representative, he said, bowing slightly. The hearing begins tomorrow. Dory's business rivals claim a human cannot legally inherit his assets or raise a Lorian child. Why not? Gia asked. Humans are not alliance members. Some consider your species too young and aggressive. Others fear giving humans access to advanced technology. That's not fair. Sue protested. Quan smiled, revealing teeth that looked like small pearls. Perhaps not, but these are the challenges we face. The next morning, they entered a vast circular chamber. 7 judges from different species sat on high benches. Hundreds of spectators watched from rising seats that surrounded the floor. The court recognizes the case of Kim Gia, human of Earth, petitioning to uphold the will of Dory of Loria, announced a floating orb in the center of the room. A tall, red-skinned being with horns stepped forward. I am Yule, representing the Merchant Guild. This will is invalid. Humans are not recognized as capable guardians for Alliance children. Further, this human cannot possibly manage Dory's trade empire. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Gia stood straight, remembering Min's advice to show no fear. May I speak? She asked. The central orb bobbed. The human may address the court. I am Professor Gia Kim of Earth. I teach astronomy. While I know little about your laws or trade, I knew Dory as my friend. He chose me to raise his child and manage his assets because he trusted me. Yule laughed, a harsh sound. The human admits her ignorance. How can she run businesses across 17 systems? How can she raise a Lorian child with no knowledge of their culture or needs? The judges conferred quietly. The human will demonstrate her capability, one judge finally said. Bring forth the child. Hoon brought Nari to the center of the room. The baby looked around curiously. Lorian children bond only with those they trust, the judge explained. They reject others. Let us see who the child accepts. Yul approached Nari first, smiling confidently. The baby immediately began to cry, a sound like tinkling bells. When others tried, the result was the same. Then Jia stepped forward. Nari immediately reached for her, small blue fingers grasping at the air. When Jia held the child, Nari's skin glowed slightly with contentment. Interesting, the judge said, but emotional bonds are not enough. How will you manage Dory's trade empire? Jia thought quickly. By listening to his trusted advisors and learning, by using human perspective to find new opportunities, and by creating a foundation in Dory's name to improve relations between our worlds. This caused excited discussion among the spectators. The judges conferred again. We will recess for deliberation, the central orb announced. Outside the courtroom, Quan seemed impressed. Your idea for a foundation is clever. It appeals to those who value cooperation between species. Sue tugged at Jia's sleeve. Mom, I found something in the ship's database last night. Can I tell them? When the court reconvened, Sue was allowed to speak. Dory kept records of all his meetings, she said shyly, including ones with those who now oppose his will. He recorded them threatening him when he proposed trading directly with Earth. The judges reviewed the evidence while Yul and his associates looked uncomfortable. Finally, the chief judge spoke. We find the will valid. Kim Jia shall inherit Dory's assets and guardianship of the child Nari, conditional upon establishing the proposed foundation and maintaining advisors from Dory's staff. As they left the courtroom, beings of various species approached Jia with congratulations or business proposals. Hoon looked relieved. You've made history today, he said. The first human to win a case in Galactic court. Jia looked at Nari, sleeping peacefully in her arms, then at Sue, who was excitedly talking with a group of young aliens. What happens now? She asked. Now, Hoon replied with a smile, you begin your new life among the stars. The sun rose over the horizon of Neova, a small planet with 2 moons that Jia had chosen as their new home. After winning the court case 3 months ago, she had selected this world because its conditions were suitable for both humans and Lorians. Their new house sat on a hill overlooking a valley of purple grass, with mountains in the distance that reminded Jia of Earth. Inside, Jia sat at a large desk covered with glowing screens. Each showed different information, trading reports, business proposals, and educational materials about various alien cultures. Running Dory's empire was challenging, but she was learning quickly with help from trusted advisors like Hoon and Min. Mom! Mom! Look what Nari can do now! Sue burst into the office, leading the small blue child by the hand. In the past months, Nari had grown rapidly. Now looking like a 4-year-old, the Lorian child had developed faster than human children would. Nari smiled at Jia and held out a small flower. As they watched, the flower began to float above the child's 6-fingered hand. Telekinesis, Hoon explained, entering the room. Lorian children develop this ability around this age. It shows Nari is healthy and happy. Jia smiled proudly. Caring for an alien child had been easier than she expected. Nari was intelligent and quick to learn Earth languages. The bond between them had grown strong, and sometimes Jia could feel Nari's emotions in her own mind, a gentle touch that the Lorians called heart-speaking. Is it time for Sue's lesson? Jia asked, checking the time on her screen. Yes, the tutor is waiting, Hoon replied. Sue attended a special school with children from 10 different species. At first she had been nervous, but soon discovered she had a talent for languages and made friends quickly. Now she often came home excited about new alien customs or foods she had tried. Can I go to the market with Jin after class? Sue asked, mentioning her friend from a bird-like species. Yes, but be home for dinner. We have important visitors tonight, Jia reminded her. After Sue and Nari left for their lessons, Jia returned to work. She was reviewing a proposal for the Dory Foundation when a secure message alert flashed on her screen. Professor Kim, this is urgent, said a voice as the message opened. The speaker was Tay, one of Dory's old partners who now worked for Gia. "I found something disturbing in the old accounting records." Gia leaned forward. "What is it?" "Unusual payments made shortly before Dory's death. I tracked them to a secret account belonging to someone in the Merchant Guild. I think Dory was murdered." Gia felt cold. She had suspected this, but having proof changed everything. "Send me everything you have, and Tay, be careful." That evening, important trade partners came to dinner at Gia's home. As they discussed business around a table filled with foods from multiple worlds, Gia noticed one guest watching Nari with too much interest. He was Gil, a representative from the same group that had opposed her in court. Later, after everyone had left, Gia found a small device hidden under the dining table. It was a tracker. "They're watching us," she told Hoon quietly, after scanning the house for more devices. "How you've become too successful," Hoon said. "Your human approach to trade has opened new markets. The Dory Foundation is gaining support. Those who opposed you now see you as a threat." Gia thought of the evidence Tai had sent. "I think they killed Dory, and now they might try to harm us, especially Nari." That night, after the children were asleep, Gia called a private meeting with her most trusted staff. "I need to know everything about the people who opposed Dory," she said, "and I need to know how to protect my family." Min projected images of several beings. "These are the leaders of the faction against you. They control key positions in the Alliance government." Gia studied their faces. "They underestimated Dory, and now they're underestimating me. They think humans are weak because we're new to space." She stood up, determination in her eyes. "They don't understand that humans have survived on Earth by adapting to challenges. Now we'll show them how humans protect their families." Hoon looked impressed. "What's your plan?" "First we gather more evidence, then we prepare a trap." Gia smiled slightly. "On Earth there's an old saying, 'Don't corner something that's willing to fight for its young.'" That night, as Gia checked on the sleeping children, one human, one alien, both hers now, she made a silent promise. No one would harm her unusual family, no matter what galaxy they came from. She touched the small pendant Dory had left for Nari, which now hung around the child's neck. It glowed faintly, responding to the child's dreams. "We'll make you proud," she whispered to her friends. "Memory." Then she returned to her office to prepare for the battle ahead. "I'll write a 800-word short story for Part 5, A Human Legacy in the Stars in simple English using third-person perspective. Here it is. A human legacy in the stars, the small ship, floated silently among the stars. Inside, Eleanor sat alone, watching the blue-green planet grow smaller behind her. She was the last human to leave Earth. 200 years ago, scientists found out that the sun would soon grow too hot. People had to find a new home. They built huge ships and left in groups to find new worlds. Elena was part of the final team. Their job was to save something special, human stories. While others packed machines and plants, Elena's team collected books, songs, art, and memories. "Someone should remember us," her grandfather once told her. "Even if we are gone, our stories should live on." The leaders had picked Elena to carry the last collection to the colony on Proxima B. At 42, she wasn't the youngest or strongest, but she knew stories better than anyone. She had spent her life collecting them. Elena looked at the small cube on her desk. It held millions of human stories, poems, songs, paintings, and histories from every culture. If humans survived on new worlds, they would not forget where they came from. Her ship computer spoke. Entering hibernation phase in 10 minutes, Elena nodded. The journey would take 20 years. She would sleep most of the way. She thought about her friends who had gone to different stars. Some might succeed, some might fail. Nobody knew if humans would survive at all. "What matters," her grandfather had said, "is that we tried, and that somewhere, someone remembers." Elena touched the cube gently. Inside were the words of Shakespeare and names of children who once lived. Inside were recipes for bread and recordings of rain falling. Everything that made humans special was in this small box. The computer spoke again. 5 minutes to hibernation. Elena picked up the cube and walked to the viewing window. Earth was just a small dot now. Soon it would be 2. Heart for any life. "We're sorry we failed you," she whispered to the planet, "but we're taking your stories with us." She thought about the colony waiting for her. They had been on Proxima b for 15 years. They had sent messages saying the air was breathable and plants were growing. They had built small cities and were having babies. They needed these stories to teach the children where they came from. Elena returned to her seat. She placed the cube in its special holder. 1 minute to hibernation, said the computer. She closed her eyes. The ship would wake her if anything went wrong. Otherwise, she would open her eyes near a different sun, ready to deliver humanity's stories to a new world. As sleep came, Elena thought of an old story her grandfather told. It was about seeds blown by the wind, traveling far to grow in new soil. We are just seeds now, she thought, as the hibernation drugs flowed into her body, scattered across the stars, hoping to grow again. 20 years passed in darkness. The small ship approached a planet circling a red star. Inside, machines hummed as they woke the sleeping woman. Elena opened her eyes. Her body felt stiff after the long sleep. The computer told her they were almost there. She could see the planet through her window, reddish with patches of blue. She thought about the people waiting for her. Would they still care about old Earth stories? Or would they be too busy with their new world? Elena picked up the cube. Whatever happened, she had done her job. She had carried humanity's memory across the stars. The computer spoke. Preparing for landing sequence. As the ship began its descent, Elena watched the new world grow larger. The old world was gone now, but its stories would live on. She had not saved Earth. Nobody could. But she had saved what Earth's people created, their dreams, their words, their songs, and perhaps someday children born under this red sun would listen to these old stories and understand where they came from. "Ready for landing," said the computer. Elena nodded. "Yes," she said. "We're ready."